The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Today we find out what's new in our last destination in New Orleans with the New Orleans Saints. And before we get started, I want to take the time to say thank you to all of these subscribers who posted comments, were the first to get their comments up and request teams. Thank you for all of the participation on this segment. It was a lot of fun. So kudos to all of you out there who participated and made this thing as fun as it was. And so with that being said, let's wrap this thing up with the New Orleans Saints. And wow, we are night and day between where we are now with the New Orleans Saints and where we were with them a year ago this time. And so there are huge changes. And you don't need to look any further than head coach Sean Payton being back in the fold in New Orleans. That's a big enough change right there in itself. But in order to find out what's new in New Orleans, you got to get rid of the old first. And so that's what we aim to do. Get rid of the old so we can get to the new. So let's go out with the old in New Orleans. So in order to go out with the old, in with the new, of course, I need not only the big board that you see behind me, but I need the help of my handy dandy pointer as well. I've got both. That means the New Orleans Saints are up. Let's talk about out with the old with these New Orleans Saints. And so a lot of changes in New Orleans, and Bounty Gate is behind us. I think the Saints are still feeling the ill effects of it somewhat, but they put it behind them and put it to rest for the most part. You know, once the games get started and you see Sean Payton on the sideline, they're going to bring it up again, but it doesn't matter. The Saints feel like they're whole again. For the first time in about a season and a half, the Saints feel whole again. They feel like a team that is complete because they have their general, their leader in Sean Payton. And so that right there to me makes them a dangerous team once again, because for the first time in a long time, the Saints were being outscored last year. They weren't making enough adjustments to come out the victor. In games that they would normally win, 41-37, they were losing. They were coming up on the short end, 41-37. They lost to the Panthers, 43-37. They lost to the Redskins, 40-32. They lost games in shootouts that they normally don't lose. And so they're going to be back in 2013, and it's because they have their head coach. A lot of people say, hey, this guy doesn't play. He's not going to make that big of a difference. I don't care that he's back. Hey, to each his own. You have your own opinion. But I tell you this much. There's not a better in-game adjustment maker from the offensive side of the football as a head coach in this league is Sean Payton. There's not another guy that calls a game with the flow of how the game is going. There's not another guy that can put his team in position to out-execute the defense on the offensive side of the football like Sean Payton. So you say what you want, and you try to devalue what he means to this football team and his franchise. You'd be sadly mistaken if you do. But you can go right ahead. But I'm telling you right now, you're going to see the difference that Sean Payton makes in 2013. So you look at this team, and they struggle defensively. And the Saints always struggle defensively, it seems like. But last year, it was more so than ever. At one point, I asked myself, is this the worst defense I've ever seen in my life? And I had to give it some serious thought. And then I said, no, I've seen worse. But they were up there. Man, was this team bad on defense or what? And so somebody had to pay for that. And that somebody was defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. He didn't get it done. Now, you could talk about all of the changes and all of the distractions. You could definitely and most certainly make a case that, hey, you could throw that year out and say, man, that should be a wash for everyone. That was not a conducive situation to be a coach on this franchise, on this staff. But no excuses. Steve Spagnuolo didn't get it done. And so he's out in New Orleans as defensive coordinator. We'll talk about who's taking his place in the next segment. But let's get on to some players now. Quarterback Chase Daniel. Here's a guy that's a Drew Brees clone. Now, we don't know if he's as good as Drew Brees. I'm just talking about from a standpoint of height and skill set. Chase Daniel is a Drew Brees clone. 6 foot tall, just like Drew Brees. Quick release, just like Drew Brees. You're hoping, and this is what, if you were a Saints fan, you were hoping, that this guy was learning through osmosis. And if Drew Brees ever went down, Chase Daniel would step in the game and you wouldn't miss a beat. But you never got to find that out. And that's a good thing for you because that means Drew Brees never got hurt. Now he's getting an opportunity to go and spread his wings in Kansas City. Now he's not getting the starting nod there. That's already been given to Alex Smith. But if Alex Smith were to get another concussion like he got last year, if Alex Smith were to go down to some kind of other injury, or if Alex Smith just isn't getting it done, Chase Daniel will get an opportunity in Kansas City. And so he's no longer on your roster. And I've talked about this with several teams on this program. The backup quarterback position is vital in this league. A lot of teams downplay it, but until your quarterback gets injured, you really don't know what you have at the backup quarterback position. Or maybe you're not paying enough attention to it. Either way, make sure that once your quarterback goes down, because it can happen to anyone. And if it does happen to you, you need to be prepared with a quarterback that can step in and keep the ship afloat until your starter comes back. And so the Saints are going to have to find someone that they're comfortable with, like they were with Chase Daniel, to come in and keep this thing afloat in the event that Drew Brees does go down. Look at running back Chris Ivory. I am a big Chris Ivory fan. I thought that he didn't get enough touches in New Orleans. And look, I understand it's a backfield that's already crowded. You've got Pierre Thomas. You've got Mark Ingram. You've got Darren Sproles. I get it. I understand. However, this is a guy that when you didn't have anything else, when Pierre Thomas was hurt, before you drafted Mark Ingram, before you had Darren Sproles, when you did not have anything, you had Chris Ivory and he got you 1,000 yards. So I find it hard to believe that once you get all your other things, you just forget about Chris Ivory as if he doesn't exist. And so I didn't like how the Saints really put this man in the doghouse and he didn't do anything wrong. I didn't like how they put him on the back burner. And I think him getting an opportunity to go out to New York with the Jets, he was traded to the Jets. I think it's a fabulous move on the part of the Jets, first and foremost, to get this guy. And second of all, I think it's going to allow Chris Ivory to show the rest of this league what he can do. I think it's a great move. Good for Chris Ivory. He's no longer on this roster being buried on the depth chart at the running back position. Look at wide receiver Devery Henderson. His time in New Orleans simply was up. Here's a guy that was a one-trick pony. Go deep, go long, and I'll just throw it to you. And for years, it worked, and it worked like a charm. Drew Brees would drop back, 5-step drop, back foot hit the ground, and then he just let it rip. And then you'd see number 19 wide open, catching the ball, running into the end zone. And it worked for a very long time. But eventually, guys get older, teams get wiser, and all of a sudden, Devery Henderson isn't open anymore. And then, when that one trick stops working and you're a one-trick pony, guess what 1 minus 1 is? 0. And so when you're a one-trick pony and your one trick doesn't work anymore, guess what? You no longer have a job. And that's what happened to Devery Henderson in New Orleans. Look at offensive tackle Jermon Bushrod. This is unfortunate for the Saints. This was Drew Brees' personal protector on the left side of the offensive line. at left tackle, you got to have a guy in this league that can get it done. There are too many premier pass rushers in this league for your left tackle to be average, ordinary, standard run-of-the-mill guy. You got to have an enforcer on the left side of your line. And for the Saints, Jermon Bushrod was that guy. Now, the Saints feel like, hey, we can get by. We'll find someone to get us by. But they wanted to hold on to Jermon Bushrod, but you had to know. You can't pay Ben Grubbs. You can't pay all the other guys on your offensive line. You had to let Carl Nick go. You can't spend all the money that the Saints have spent on the interior of this line and think you're going to be able to still hold on to a guy like Jermon Bushrod. You can't do it. You want to spend money on the guard position? Fine. Now when it's time to pay your tackle, that's when you run into a roadblock. Jermon Bushrod now in Chicago, and now you got to find yourself an adequate, a more than adequate left tackle. You drafted a guy that you think could be the future at left tackle, but he's not ready. He's raw, he needs work, and so someone's going to have to step up at that left tackle position. You look at tight end David Thomas. Solid tight end. And the thing I love about New Orleans and Drew Brees and this whole offense is it doesn't matter who's open. If you're a target on the field and you present an inviting target for Drew Brees to throw the football, you'll get the football. Doesn't matter. He does not discriminate. And David Thomas, not an athletic tight end, not a guy that you think of as a pass-catching threat, nor a first, second, third, or fourth option on the field. But yet David Thomas was a guy that could sneak out into the passing route and get a couple of passes and score a touchdown or two. And so he was primarily a blocking tight end, but this guy could catch the football too because he played for the New Orleans Saints, and they don't care. If you got a number on that's eligible to catch a pass, guess what? You're going to get the football at some point. And David Thomas did, but the Saints feel like, hey, we can upgrade at this tight end position. And I think they did a well of a job in doing so. We'll get to that here in the next segment. But no more David Thomas on this roster. You go to cornerback Albert Mack. Solid corner. You got him from Tampa Bay. He played about 7 games for you, started in a couple. Was okay, but again, he was part of the problem in New Orleans, not part of the solution. That's why he's no longer on this roster. Look at cornerback Johnny Patrick. Wow. Something went terribly wrong here for a guy that's only been in the league 2 years that you spent a 3rd-round draft pick on to not be on this team anymore. Something went wrong with Johnny Patrick. Somewhere along the lines, signals got crossed, and you felt like there was no going back. You were past the point of no return with Johnny Patrick, and he had to go. I don't know what happened. Something transpired. Either way, he's no longer on this roster. He's in San Diego, and they're hoping you gave up on him too soon. Because normally when you spend a 3rd rounder on a player, he's not gone in 2 seasons. So we'll see what happens with Johnny Patrick in San Diego. You look at linebacker Jonathan Casillas. Here's a guy that you brought up from a young pup. You drafted him and you brought him up, and he came into this league and he was a bit rough. And you were able to chisel off those rough edges and smooth them out and turn him into a very good linebacker. And all of a sudden now it's time to re-up, and he's gone off to your divisional foe in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hey, how about that? So, and look, that's the way it goes in this league sometimes. You turn this guy into a specimen, a physical player on the field, a guy that can get it done at the linebacker position, and then he takes off to that green. It's all about that dirty cream green. It is. It just simply is. And Jonathan Casillas went chasing it, found some in Tampa Bay. He's no longer on your roster. You look at linebacker Scott Shanley, veteran that is no longer a serviceable veteran on this football team. Maybe he can help someone else, but his time was up in New Orleans. He couldn't help you anymore. He was part of the problem again in New Orleans. He had to go. You look at defensive end Turk McBride. Solid run stuffing defensive end. Not a guy that necessarily is getting pressure on the quarterback, but in the run game, I thought Turk McBride was solid. He goes on to Chicago, and unfortunately for him, tough break. He tears his ACL. He's out for the season. So he leaves, goes to Chicago, thinks he's going to play a pivotal role in helping them get to the postseason, and he tears his ACL. Unfortunate break for Turk McBride, but again, not your problem, not on your roster, but still very tough break for Turk McBride as his season is over before it gets started in 2013. You look at defensive tackle Cedric Ellis. What a disappointment he was. You draft him in the first round out of USC. You're thinking this is a guy that can come in and really do some damage at the defensive tackle position. He's inconsistent at best. He has one really good season. The rest of them are washes. He doesn't do anything. And you give up on him. You say, okay, we've had enough. We're moving on. This is like banging your head against a brick wall with this guy. And no more. We're letting this guy walk away. And so he goes to Chicago, and you're thinking, maybe he's going to have a breath of fresh air in Chicago, fresh start. Maybe he can jumpstart his career and really get it going alongside guys like Henry Melton and Julius Peppers and guys of that nature. And he just quits. He gets to training camp in Chicago and says, you know what? I don't want to play anymore. He took his ball and he went home. And you know what? That's probably for the best. Because if you don't want to play, no need in stealing anyone's money. You already did that in New Orleans. No need in acting as if you want to play the game of football. There are many guys that would die and kill for the opportunity to make it on a roster. If you don't want to play, don't hold up a roster spot that someone else can be taking. So he retires from the National Football League, does Cedric Ellis, and he's not going to be missed, simply put. So that's out with the old in New Orleans. A lot of these guys on this list, you're not going to miss them one bit. I think Jamon Bushrod, that hurts. Chris Ivory is a guy that I thought could have been utilized more, but you're not going to miss him because you did not use him anyway. And so looking at this list, Jonathan Casillas and Jamon Bushrod are probably the only guys you're going to miss. And of course, Chase Daniel never saw the field. So in terms of comfort, yeah, you're going to miss Chase Daniel because it was always good knowing, hey, we got a guy that we trust behind Drew Brees. But in terms of production, you don't know what Chase Daniel is. And so you can't miss what you don't know what you have. And so out with the old in New Orleans. Let's go in with the new now in New Orleans. So you go in with the New Orleans Saints, and you start at the top. You lose defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, or you don't lose him, you lose him. You get rid of him. And so in comes new defensive coordinator Rob Ryan, and that's a guy I don't like. Not a big fan of Rob Ryan because he's a guy that is very boisterous, very, very ego-driven, egomaniac, egotistical. When he gets fired from Dallas, oh, I'll have a job in 5 minutes. Really? Really? You're that good, huh? Never had a defense that made it to the postseason, but you're that good, huh? Had defenses in Oakland, Cleveland, Dallas, never made it to the postseason, but you're that good of a defensive coordinator. Or is your brother that good? Or is your dad a legend and you're just draping off of their coattails? Huh? Which one is it? Are you that good or are they that good and you get lumped in by association of the last name? That's how I feel. He's a fraud. And so I'm going to find out what Rob Ryan is in New Orleans because now you got this potent offense that's going to put up 34 points a game. And all you got to do is not regurgitate and throw up all over yourself on the defensive side of the football. Can you come in and have this defense? Because look, if you can have this defense giving up 21 points a game, you'll go 12-4. You'll go 11-5. And that's all you got to do. Can you come in and do that? Or will this defense be subpar like the Saints always are, like your defenses always are? Will you give up points and lose ball games? We'll see. Because I'm not a Rob Ryan guy. And yes, you're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defensive scheme. So you got to cut this guy just an ounce of slack. But when you run your mouth the way he does, I'm not cutting you anything. I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt for anything. Since you want to run your mouth, oh, I'll get a job in 5 minutes. Since you feel that confident about your ability to coach up defenses, Fine. Take this 4-3 defense, turn it into a 3-4 defense, and turn it into a winner in one season's time. Take the stuff that you've already acquired, make it a winner right now. No excuses. That's how I feel about Rob Ryan. We'll see what he does in New Orleans. You move on to quarterback Luke McCown. You need a backup. He's going to compete with the next guy on this list, Seneca Wallace. Both of these guys aren't necessary on this roster. You only need one. I don't trust anybody in the McCown family. None of them. Not Luke, not Josh, not Cade, none of them. So right there, McCown is out. Give me Seneca Wallace, and I'll just move on. You look at tight end Benjamin Watson. This is the guy that's replacing David Thomas, and I absolutely love it. Love it! Because this is a guy that can do it all. When Benjamin Watson doesn't have a concussion, he's dangerous. And last time I checked, he doesn't have a concussion, so he's dangerous. And the Browns were foolish to let this guy walk away. There was no reason for Benjamin Watson not to be back in Cleveland. Benjamin Watson had two of his best seasons of his career in Cleveland, and they just let him walk away as if they had a tight end. And they do have a tight end with some talent out there, but Benjamin Watson should still be in Cleveland. They have Jordan Cameron, and they feel good about him. Benjamin Watson should still be in Cleveland. But, okay, their loss is your game. Now he's in New Orleans. And here's another pass-catching threat for Drew Brees to get the football to. If you thought it was bad before with Jimmy Graham and Marquise Colston, and then you got your little jitterbug in the slot in Lance Moore, if you thought that was bad, add Benjamin Watson to the list of guys that can get it. And then you just sprinkle in a little bit of Darren Sproles, and SpaghettiOs, you're in trouble. And those two tight end sets now are going to be vicious because you can cover and spend all your time focusing in on Jimmy Graham all you like. Benjamin Watson will get you. He'll get you. And so, good luck. Good luck defending this Saints offense with them getting another weapon like Benjamin Watson. Good luck. You look at offensive tackle Jason Smith. Boo! Boo! This is the Saints just trying something here. Now you close your eyes, you take the dart and you throw it and you hope you hit somewhere on the board. You don't care where, just somewhere in that landing area where you can get some points. That's what you're doing here with Jason Smith because he's not a good tackle. Right now, he's 95% a bust in this league, and he's just looking to finish that last 5%. Maybe it's going to be in New Orleans, maybe it won't. He can't start for you. He can't. It's really simple. Jason Smith cannot start for you in New Orleans. And so, don't know what the Saints are doing here. I don't know what they're trying, but it's not going to work. Look at safety Jim Leonard. And solid safety. He's been in this league for numerous years. And this is simply one of those situations where the coordinator is comfortable with the player. And Rob Ryan has never coached Jim Leonard, but his brother did. And his brother probably told him, hey, this guy's solid. And take a chance on him. He can help you. Special teams, he can help you. On defense, he's a smart, instinctive player. He can help you. And so he's on this roster. We'll see what he can do. He's not going to start, but he's a guy that in a backup rotational depth capacity can definitely help you at this stage of his career. You look at cornerback Chris Carr. Depth. Don't want him starting. You put him on special teams. Maybe he can help you there because last time I checked, Chris Carr was not the best tackling cornerback in the league. And as a corner, average, I think I'm being generous that he's marginal at best as a corner. So really don't know where you're going with that one either, but we'll see. Cornerback Keenan Lewis. Here's a guy you spent some money on to go get from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And anytime you get a Steelers corner, you know first and foremost the guy can tackle. And Keenan Lewis can tackle. And so if nothing else, this guy can tackle. He's like a safety playing corner because out in space, forget about it. You're going down. And I think this guy can get better. And at 6'1", he's long, he's athletic. I want to see if Keenan Lewis can improve his game and turn into a playmaker. I don't think he's a playmaker. I think he's a guy that's solid in coverage, is around the football, doesn't necessarily make plays on the football, but he's around it enough that you're thinking maybe he can grow into a playmaker, but he can tackle. And that's one thing you love about corners that aren't afraid and can tackle, because sometimes out in space, you're the last line of defense as a corner. And if you ole, a simple 5-yard gain could turn into a 35-yard gain if you don't do your job on the outside as a corner. Don't have to worry about that with Keenan Lewis. He's going to tackle the ball carrier when they come in his general vicinity. You look at linebacker Victor Butler. And much like Turk McBride, very unfortunate break. This time for you. With Turk McBride, it wasn't that bad for you because he was no longer on your roster. He tore his ACL out in Chicago. But for Victor Butler, that is your problem. You got him over from the Cowboys. Rob Ryan came over from Dallas, and he brought Victor Butler with him as a guy that he thought could get pressure on the quarterback. And Victor Butler was finally going to get an opportunity to start. He was going to see if he could spread his wings and show the rest of this league what he could do as a rush outside linebacker in the 3-4 defense. And he gets to New Orleans, and before he could even get to training camp, tears his ACL. Again, unfortunate break for a guy like Victor Butler, who was finally going to get an opportunity to start in New Orleans, and it's a shame. It really is a shame, but he's not going to be able to play in 2013. You look at defensive end Kenyon Coleman, much like Victor Butler, coming over from the Cowboys, and Rob Ryan just brought him right along. Hey, I'm comfortable with this guy. I know what he brings to the table. He's a veteran. I know what I'm getting from him in a 3-4 defense as a 5 technique at defensive end. And Kenyon Coleman is solid and sturdy at the point of attack. He's going to be solid in the run game. Probably not going to get pressure on the quarterback at this juncture of his career, but he's as solid as it gets as a 5 technique in this league. And he's on your football team, and he's going to help you in the run game. So that's the end with the new portion in terms of offseason acquisitions for coaches, players, and trade. Now, let's go to your draft picks. And if you're looking for an extensive breakdown of this draft with the New Orleans Saints or any team in the National Football League for that matter, turn to the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series that I have done for every team in the league, including the Saints. So if you want an in-depth, thorough breakdown of each and every single one of these players, 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. So, safety, Kenny Vaccaro in the first round out of Texas. He's going to be plugged into that strong safety position. And you've been looking for someone to be across from Malcolm Jenkins in this defense. And I love Malcolm Jenkins as a safety. He needed help, though. Now he's got it in the form of Kenny Vaccaro. You look at offensive tackle, Teron Armstead. Here's a guy that is raw. And this is a guy that I think you're thinking, and I think you're thinking, I'm not sure, that this is the future at the left tackle position. He's not ready, though. Maybe a year or two of seasoning, and then you plug this guy in. In the third round, you look at defensive tackle John Jenkins, wide receiver Kenny Stills in the 5th round, and rounding out your draft in the 6th round, Rufus Johnson, a defensive end. And so that's a guy that might be seeing some linebacker action on this football team as well. I don't know. We'll see. And so you go from guys that are going to make this roster, essentially locks in draft picks, to undrafted rookie free agents who are scratching, clawing, trying to do everything they can to find a roster spot, not only on this team, but on any team in this league for that matter. So let's run down this list quickly. Quarterback Ryan Griffin out of Tulane. Center Elliott Mueller out of Michigan. Tight end Devon Milton out of Louisiana Monroe. Tight end Josh Hill out of Idaho State. Linebacker Kevin Reddick out of North Carolina. Running back Kerry Robinson out of West Texas A&M. Fullback Austin Johnson out of Tennessee. Linebacker Rayford Shipman out of Central Florida. Defensive end Glenn Foster out of Illinois. Offensive guard Tim Lito out of Grand Valley State. Wide receiver Leonard Brent out of Louisiana Monroe. Cornerback Rod Sweeting out of Georgia Tech. linebacker Chase Thomas out of Stanford, kicker Carlos Jose Malto, and linebacker Eric Marlin out of Nebraska. And so those are your undrafted rookie free agents looking to try to crack this roster. Wouldn't be surprised if the Saints kept 2 or 3 of these guys on their roster, especially after this light draft that they had and some of these names off of this list. There are some roster spots available. Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of these guys fill those voids. And so you go from in with the new in New Orleans to any philosophical changes for this New Orleans Saints football team. So you look at any philosophical changes for the New Orleans Saints, and you got to start on the offensive side of football because you're getting your head coach back. I can't stress that enough. Sean Payton makes a difference, and him coming back adds 10 points to the season average of this Saints football team. And yes, I'm over-exaggerating. Of course, I'm overstating his importance, but he means a lot to this franchise. He means a lot to Drew Brees in this offense. And I thought, even though this offense was extremely effective last season, they did not make the necessary adjustments when they needed to be made to win football games. And so that's where he's going to come in handy this year. Seeing what the defense is doing, making an in-game adjustment, and having his team be successful in that game. It's one thing to make an adjustment after you go home with an L and watch the film. It's another thing to make the adjustment in the game, salvage the victory, and then say, hey, we got some things to work on, but we got the W. And with Sean Payton on the sidelines, a lot of times that's what happens. They find a way to win games. They outscore opponents and look for the Saints to be explosive on offense. There isn't any philosophical changes on offense. The Saints are going to be the Saints. Sean Payton is back. They're going to take this football and air it out and score a lot of points. Defensively is where the philosophical changes are going to take place for this football team because it's a whole new scheme. It's a whole new philosophy. It's a whole new defensive coordinator. And so Rob Ryan comes in and he's bringing his 3-4 defense with him. No more Steve Spagnuolo. No more 4-3 defense. No more base defense that sees this New Orleans Saints team not be able to stop the run nor get after the quarterback. So in this 3-4 defense, the first thing you're looking to do is come in and stop the run. If you can't stop the run in this league, you cannot be an effective team on the defensive side of the football. And so Rob Ryan's first action on this defense, stop the run. Once you stop the run, then you can worry about getting pressure. I'm not sure in your first year of a 3-4 defense if you're going to have all the pieces in place to get pressure on the quarterback, especially losing a guy like Victor Butler. That hurts. That stings. You've got some guys that I think you're going to try to convert to linebacker that might be able to help you, like a Junior Gillette. But losing Victor Butler stings because he was a guy that you were going to count on to try to get pressure on the quarterback. We'll see how you kind of offset that injury and try to manage to get pressure on the quarterback. It'll be interesting to see how the Saints manufacture pressure because Rob Ryan a lot of times is not an aggressive coordinator. Unlike his brother, unlike his dad, who were just uber aggressive. These guys are uber aggressive. He's not. He's a guy that much rather just rush 4 or 5 guys and just play coverage. And in Dallas, it did not work. And so he's got to be more aggressive, especially when you don't have a DeMarcus Ware or an Anthony Spencer who can get pressure on their own. You're not dealing with these guys that can get sacks on their own merit. Now you got to generate pressure. And so he's probably going to have to turn guys loose and blitz. And so want to see what this defense is going to look like. But it's going to be a 3-4 defensive look now in New Orleans. Totally different from what you're used to. You got Kenny Vaccaro. You got Malcolm Jenkins in that secondary. I feel like you're starting to build something. Those are the pieces you want to build around in that secondary. And now I want to see what you're going to do in this front seven because Jonathan Vilma is getting up there in age. And you lose Jonathan Casillas. And so now you got to start bringing in guys that can help you. And yeah, you got Curtis Lawson, and that helps. But you got to find a way to make this defense work in New Orleans. And maybe you don't have all the pieces now. Maybe you do. Most likely you don't. It usually takes about 2 seasons to really get where you want to be in a 3-4 defense. And so wouldn't be surprised if the Saints struggle. But I am not giving Rob Ryan any free passes, because if he thinks he's such a great coordinator, then make it work with all the pieces that you have. That's what the great ones do. That's what Dick LeBeau does. That's what Marvin Lewis does. That is what the guys that are gurus at defense, that's what they do. They take what they have and they make it work. And since you are such a great defensive coordinator that you'll have a job in less than 5 minutes, make it work in New Orleans. And so that's what's new in New Orleans.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.